officially started. Greetings, I'm Professor Spira, and we are having a Mucusless Diet Meetup online here on Google Hangouts. And let's introduce everybody here. We have, all the way to the left, we have Tony Baliby, and we have George from Slovakia.
Hey,
And,
what's up, man?
and we have
I'm just
Samantha.
on a Skype call. Is it gonna bother you? Oh, okay.
And
No, I'm not.
so, so basically, Mucusless Diet Healing System, if there's anybody that still doesn't know what that is, it is a diet that was coined by Professor Arnold Ehret back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And it's basically a transitionary system toward a diet that is pus and mucus free of pus and mucus forming foods. And so what's very unique about Ehret's system is that there is a very sophisticated yet simple transitionary methodology that's used to take you from wherever you are, however you eat, and sort of systematically improve your diet over time, as opposed to trying and jumping in and just cutting out everything all at once. There's certain things that you want to cut out sort of early on, and other things that you want to maybe that you can still use to get off of worse foods. So without further ado, let's talk with some of our panelists here. I want to go to Samantha and see how kind of give a little bit of your history. You know, when did you start practicing the diet, and you know, kind of the ups and downs, the challenges, and the good things you've seen. Just give us a little bit of the story.
Okay. So I began practicing the diet. How long has it been? It's been over 3 years
Yeah, I was gonna
now.
say 3 years ago, I
Three
think.
years.
Yeah.
3 years. Yeah, about 3 years ago. I was a senior in college when I began my journey, but I first came across the diet at a jazz workshop, the Jamie Aebersold workshop in Louisville, Kentucky, where Professor Spira was there studying, as well as me and many other wonderful people. And I was hanging out with my friend, and he was telling me that he had a talk with Professor Spira about, all these myths that we've grown up with that, are just not true, that are not true, that, the protein myth and the myth about needing, animal products to sustain living and countless of other things. And for some reason, that just completely clicked, and it didn't, fail to, I guess I recognized that it totally is possible immediately. Or, I don't know, it just clicked. So I began to do my research, and I purchased the Mucusless Diet Healing System. And I studied my university. My university was in Delaware, Ohio, which is about 30 minutes north of Columbus. And I know Professor Spira is centered in the Columbus location studying. So I hooked up with him, and he just expanded my world with his wisdom and knowledge. So yeah, it was at first. I mean, it was exciting. It still is exciting, but I mean, the beginning, it was just so cool. The way I could just feel everything in my body loosening up and flushing out, and it was just like, whoa, so amazing. And I really liked the environment I was in when I began it. I was a university student, but I had a lot of structure around me. And for me, beginning something like the diet, I needed to have the structure. I needed to have a schedule. I needed to have my set things that I did every day, and the place that I lived. And, I developed good habits during that time. So it was a really great time and place for me to begin it. Um, and so challenges. Well, there have been so many challenges besides societal pressure. That's probably one of the biggest ones because people understand veganism, but they
Right.
don't understand the mucusless concept. And they're like, "What do you mean mucusless?" And you gotta explain it, and they still might not understand it. My biggest, most recent challenge has been living in Vietnam. In Vietnam, daytime here. There's windows 7 a.m. And I chose to come here. I'm in Hanoi in the north, and I chose to come here because, well, for many reasons. I had some friends here, but I really like the climate, the weather, temperature, and I like that food grows all around here. We can get produce that grows locally all around, fruit that grows locally all around, and it gets cold in the winter, so we don't have local tropical fruit all around. If I was further south, then we would. Um, but I just really like being in a place where I know things grow. It makes me feel a little bit more secure than living somewhere where things are sleeping for 6 months.
Right.
Um, yeah. But here, I don't know how to possibly like it would take quite advanced Vietnamese, and in Hanoi, people like really don't speak English. It's not a common language. In the city in the south, Ho Chi Minh City, also known as Saigon, or formerly officially known as Saigon, um, people speak English a lot. Like it's quite common to encounter people who speak English, but here, no. So there's a word for saying that you are vegan, but that doesn't imply it doesn't imply mucusless. And here, the staple that people eat at every single meal is rice. So I definitely have fallen into the rice trap, and it has made me feel so sick so many times. And it's definitely a matter of being amongst people who do something all the time, and that has been so much a part of the way they've eaten for, I don't even know, I haven't looked up how long they've been cultivating rice, but it hasn't been 100 years. It's been a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's part of their way and has been part of their way. And so yeah, it's difficult
Yeah.
sometimes, but when I just cut everything out and I'm solely responsible for what I put in my mouth, then there's a lot of great juices. There's pineapples are back. Like I'll show you this pineapple in a little bit, but it's just golden yellow and it
Mm.
tastes so good.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
And
that's just one of the fruits.
yeah. And for those of you that might be familiar with my book Spira Speaks, this is the Samantha from Spira Speaks. That's that has the chapter in there, and that was an interesting interesting period because she was asking really great questions, and it really sort of kind of captured that period when somebody is first getting into the mucusless diet, and it's like all the type of questions that come up. There's
Mm.
family issues, and there's friends, and how do you deal with telling your friends about the mucusless diet, and you're trying to do some enemas, and it's like, how do you do this with in a house with people, and so it can get really kind of challenging. And so I like the content that really kind of came out of that
Mm.
collaboration. And
Yeah. When I first began, I lived in a house with 11 people. So
yeah,
that was, I was like,
right in the college. Yeah, yeah,
oh, yeah. And I share my bathroom with 5 other people.
right.
So I had to time the enemas right. Sometimes I would do it at nighttime. People would want to take showers, and I'd be in there, like, playing my soft music. They're like, what's going on? But,
Right.
gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I remember a couple things, that the pieces of advice that I had. Just attitude. Sometimes you got to have a certain attitude about practicing this thing so that people will sort of respect you if you kind of come correct and it's like, look, this is what I'm doing. I got to do this. And, if they're challenging you, sometimes they won't even challenge you. Cause the other thing people fall into is wanting to kind of, it's like they feeling good and they want to tell everybody in the world about this thing. And then they sort of don't come with the necessary backing, like I say, if you, if and I probably shouldn't even, this is like, pus and mucus kind of suggest correlation, but, if you're a blood, like the gang Bloods, which is like a famous gang in America, if you're part of the Bloods and you're not going to go to the Crips territory by yourself, you're going to come with all of your boys. And this thing is sort of like that, where people will, if you're by yourself in a room full of a bunch of people eating steak and potatoes and bacon and eggs, and you start talking about, pus and mucus forming foods is not what I do, then you can really be on the receiving end of some pretty strong ridicule and criticism and stuff. So you just have to sort of work through that, be ready for it, but be smart about how you talk to people. And you said, so you almost are introducing the word mucusless to that language to the folks there.
I don't even know how to say.
You would have to
mucus,
just say mucus-free, or
they're like, what do you mean no mucus?
Right, no mucus. Yeah.
Oh, like, what? You're not eating mucus? Like, oh.
Yeah. It's just let's see. Mucusless diet probably hasn't been translated into that language yet. We'll have to get on that. So, all right, Samantha, let's talk to George. If we got him still on here, there you go. And so, George, so tell us a little bit about, how long you been into the diet? How did you find out about it? Kind of a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I can tell you about the standard I'm on now, which I can hold on, which wasn't the first time I started. I couldn't hold on the standard I wanted, not at all. It is now close to. At the day I eat only fruit, evening salad with the fruit dressings, and sometimes I ate at the last time seeds. I'm not proud of that one, but yeah, that's true. So,
but seed? You said seed?
Yeah, seeds like yeah. And I found out about the diet when I was in the sanctuary, but I didn't know at that time. I just found out that some saints from the books, like holy books, that some saints lived without food for a very long period of time.
Right, the
or
fasting.
They didn't need it.
Now tell us which sanctuary was this that you were in?
It was.
Or what affiliation?
It's like Hare Krishna, that one.
Okay.
Yeah. It was good because 4 years ago I was like transitioning at once from as I came there I was like no meat, no alcohol, no cigarettes, no weed. I stayed at those. It was good. It was very, very good change. But I saw that there is more to it. But they didn't support it because it is a religious dogma which holds people to believe that you need milk, you need grains. It is so important in life, those things. So that's why I left.
And that's funny you mention it that way, because that's how I view modern day, kind of nutritional viewpoints. Is really like a religious dogma almost. It's kind of this, this standard American diet kind of thing. I sometimes make a connection between kind of medical doctors, kind of like say medical doctors are sort of the modern day Catholic priest of old, in terms of you never question, historically speaking, you never questioned the validity of the priest, and you didn't question them. You went, you genuflected, kissed the ring, bow your head, and anything that they said goes. And that's how people are oftentimes, or how we're conditioned to be with medical doctors. Is this kind of like they're holier than thou. They're just so smart. They're so great. They know all of these big words that we don't know, and so we're putting our health into their hands. And so I sort of make that connection where that kind of thinking really almost is like a religious dogma. And so that's
Yeah,
interesting. You're saying now. So you're saying that that they believe that you have to drink milk.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because otherwise your brain cells would not function well. But
Mm.
it's so stupid because either in their own religious books it's not written that
Right.
way.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. And okay. So and you say like so right now. Are you you said there's really nobody around that practices a diet or anything? You're kind of just out there.
Yeah, that's true. Because at first I've done it really wrong. I didn't know about the book, and I wanted to fast, and I did 3 days of fast, and then I overate for 4 days, and then I did more 3 days of fast, and like this I was doing it a longer period of time, and then I've tried 7 day fast, water fast. I mean, it was too strong for that time. I was like drowning in my own waste, and
Right.
yeah, it was not very good
It,
for my body as well.
and that's really the classic. That's almost that's so classic is what people do because they hear this information, they have these
I think so.
concepts, yeah, because and people don't know, yeah, and even people that read the Mucusless Diet, many of them don't know, like many of them don't pick it up, and I don't see how. I don't know if they skip over the chapter that says transition diet or what, but uh, that is something, and that's why we stress transition so much because it is the thing that for some reason that's not talked about enough out of all of these various kind of vegan subcategories and just plant-based lifestyles. Nobody's really talking seriously about transition, and they might use that word, but they're talking about, some of them talk about 21-day transitions or a month or something, and we're talking about a lifetime of transition, and being very serious and honest with ourselves about how deep this addiction is. So, Tony, let's visit you and tell us a little bit about your journey on the Mucusless diet.
Oh, okay. Uh, well, I got into the mucusless diet about, I think I got serious about it in the beginning of 2012. Um, but I think I found out about it in 2011. I'm trying to figure out when I first learned about it. um, but I feel like it's like 3 years and then 2 years that I've been really into it, maybe. Um, yeah, and I started out vegetarian about 6 years ago. Then I guess I became vegan 5 years ago, maybe. So that's kind of my transition. Um, yeah, and I just kind of, it struck me. I mean, I understood when I read the book, it was like made perfect sense. So yeah, just kind of got into it like that and just hooked up and started talking to Professor Spira and everything like that.
Yeah. And Tony's been at it, man. He's been really studying, all the books and we've had some interesting conversations and and kind of like uh, with Samantha, we have this long written dialogue that has been going on for the past
Yeah.
year, and and it'll be that's some of the stuff we talk about is almost it's like too hot for
Yeah.
too hot for television, kind of, just some there's certain things that you get into, and I try not to get into them too much when I'm talking in general terms about the diet, because I want people to focus on what you need to focus on: the transition, the mechanics of the diet, understanding the fasting process, all that kind of stuff. But the implications of the Mucusless Diet Healing System and the theories that Eric put forth really redefine everything that we have imagined about the human body and the human life, and human purpose, and it can get fairly deep, and get into some interesting things. So to have those
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
conversations, you had to have some kind of special people, and people that have open mind and kind of
Yeah.
understand the process of that kind of discussion. And
Yeah, definitely. And first of all, can you guys hear me well, or should I
Yeah.
speak up? Or
you cool.
Yeah,
No, it's fine.
okay, cool.
nice.
Um, yeah, I think with me, I'm a person who really needs to understand the philosophical side of things. Uh, the mechanics were all good, but I had to kind of ask all these questions just related to like a big one for me is the mindset of non-consumption. Not just fasting, but that whole mindset of, not consuming, coming from being like a smoker and, uh, just eating whenever food was offered and stuff. Now I'm kind of like, oh, I'll just take orange juice. Or it's funny actually because it's gotten to the point where I don't take stuff, even if it's stuff that I would normally want. It's like somebody's like, oh, you want an apple? I'm like, no, I'm okay right now. And it gets to the point where it's like, you're just kind of a non-consumer sometimes. And that just gets me into all kind of like psychological things about, how do you talk to people when they're consuming, or, how do you just navigate society when it's based on always consuming something. You're consuming food, you're consuming TV, you're consuming the future. How do you sit in the present moment as a kind of non-consumer? So I get into all those kind of questions,
Right, right.
and I just kind of deal with my transition. As far as my transition, I've kind of been, I guess I could say, like, I do like 2 months pretty intensively, and then maybe 1 month I get into mucus lean options, uh, get more into the fatty fruits, um, uh, and stuff like that. I'm just kind of coming out, I guess, of a mucus lean period. I was getting into what was the thing I was really on? Just like I was heavy into the olive oil, which isn't a bad thing really, but that's kind of something I was dealing with. And then I got into the potatoes were
Mm-hmm.
big for me. Like the last for about 2 weeks, a week ago, you know what I mean? Like a week ago, for 2 weeks, I was into a period of potatoes, and this week I've been really like I did a lot of greens last weekend, did a
White
lot of
potatoes.
fasting, and then this week I've been on like mostly fruits, and I would say about I'm going on like 4 days, 100% mucusless right now. Uh, which isn't very much, but I've been pretty intense. I'm coming up on 24 hours dry fasting right now, which just kind of happened. I made juice this morning, and I just stopped getting hungry, So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
and
and
that's
I'm
the
starting to see some mucus coming up and stuff.
right. Yeah, the process. And I think we was talking yesterday about the word companion. You know, the
Yeah.
historical origin of the word companion actually literally means bread fellow, because panis, the Latin panis means bread, and so the word companion literally means bread fellow. So the foundation of, you know, companionship really, in terms of the way the word operates, really relates directly to an eating process. And that really shows, sort of sheds light on the social dynamic. And that's something that I like to talk about a lot, is sort of challenging social issues and dynamics while trying to practice a diet with, you know, family and that kind of thing. And it is it got kind of loud on Tony's there. He's in the library. And so let me see. And so it is a, you know, really a thing where uh, you have to learn how to, like, everybody really has to find their own way to deal with the family thing, you know, either or the friend thing, you know. In some cases, I kind of did somewhat of a hardcore kind of piece where I spent a lot of time kind of by myself, and just, you know, I was like, okay, I need to, you know, kind of be, you know, just sort of be alone. But, you know, but then I got to the point where I was like, okay, I really want to learn how to talk about the diet fluently and be able to communicate with people that's not necessarily, you know, 100% into health and that kind of thing. And so I really got into studying. And let me ask Samantha, tell me what were some ways that you, in the earlier days, what were some ways that you sort of navigated dealing with the social issues?
Hmm.
'Cause I remember you did a great job. I mean, we would talk about it, then you would kind of go and apply things and experimenting with things, and then sort of do a really good job of navigating your way through it socially.
Hmm. Let's see. I think well, one thing that helped me was actually the house that I lived in. I lived in a house called the Tree House, which was an environmentally conscious house. And I think just because I was surrounded by people who cared about the world we live on, and many people were already vegetarian, um, it was it was it was a nice little cushion, or like people weren't so hard on me for coming with, well, first being vegan and then being plant-based, you know. So it wasn't so terrible, but I think people were quite interested in what I was doing, you know. Some things were difficult, but I think people were more curious than like against me and my initiative. Like
Right.
people would see me eating dates, and like I remember making one of the salads with like celery, dates, apples, and parsley, and they're like, "Whoa, what are you eating? That looks great." Or I would come to class with like a sweet potato, and everyone would be staring at me like, "What's she doing?" And I'm like, "This is after my combination salad, you guys." And they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Let me talk about the mucus diet," you know. And I had some people like read the book, and whether they practiced it or not, or but it I think because it was so odd, and because of the space I was in, because I was at a university where people are trying to expand their minds, it wasn't so awkward.
Right, right.
It was People were quite intrigued by it and interested in this new
Now,
phenomenon.
how about with your parents and your sister, and I know you, after you
Mm.
graduated, you went home for a while, and
Yeah,
how did that go
so
there?
all right, so I come from a background. My mother is African American and my father is Greek. And in the Greek culture, people are eating feta cheese all the time, and they're rubbed lamb, and they're rubbed little animal parts. That summer, after I graduated, I went to Greece. And I suggested to my parents, because I knew that if we went to restaurants every day and depended on restaurants for food, that it just would be quite difficult for me. And I mean, fortunately, we went in the summer, so things were growing. But it 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 was a challenge because we weren't making our own food. We were eating out. So there are only so many salads I can eat. Like every single day was like cucumber, tomato salad every day. And I'm like, where's the market? Where's the fruit? You know, my parents were like, no, you're not walking there by yourself. It's a couple kilometers away. And so yeah, after it took me a couple of weeks, I was on the diet already for about 5 or 6 months.
Mm.
And so after a couple of weeks, I just started to eat animal products again. I ate fish again because I was bored of just eating cucumbers and just feeling so odd and uncomfortable. And yeah,
And didn't that
so
make
then I got back into
didn't
that.
that and that didn't when you did, because I think you told me when that happened, and didn't that like just really make you sick, kind of, or
Oh my
not? You
God.
didn't feel too good after that.
I think it was more like emotional.
Mm.
Emotionally, I felt so sad because then when I went back home, I started to eat. So it started with the fish, and I was like, I'll have a little bit of chicken, you know. And then I was like, oh, I'll just have some wine, you know, and like picking up these bad habits. And then I felt like my spirit was just so sad, and I tend to be quite an up person, especially after I changed the way I eat.
Right. Yeah.
I definitely became a much more up, happy person. And then I noticed when I started to consume animal flesh again and having a little bit of alcohol, I was angry for no reason, angry, just angry sitting. And I'm like, I'm really upset right now, and this is not
Well,
okay,
I
you
mean,
know?
there was a
And being
reason.
aware.
It's like,
Yeah,
there
yeah,
was a
yeah, yeah.
reason,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, and it also was paired with bad activities like watching Jersey Shore. I'm like eating chicken, drinking wine, and watching Jersey Shore, and I'm like, this is terrible. This is terrible.
Yeah.
So, and my father that summer, he had a hip replacement surgery, and just being in the hospital in that environment, seeing him in the gown and those fold-up chairs they were, and just that environment, I was like, I can't. And so after that, I haven't had animal flesh, and
Yeah.
feel so
Yeah.
much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I commend you for sharing that story. One, because
Yeah.
there's so many people out here in this plant-based thing that they're very, they're just very kind of strict, and I think sometimes not genuine about what they really do, where they really are, and so they
Mm.
promote a certain ideology or a certain whatever, and then they're they're actually transitioning, but they're just not talking about it. So they're like, well, overnight I went raw. No, you didn't. I bet at some
Mm.
point you had something cooked, or you ate a
Mm.
bunch of mucus forming raw foods, or something. So
Mhm.
the thing about this is, because for me it was similar in a way that it took me about 6 months to totally get off of meat. Now I know a lot of people that I know, they were able to get off of it immediately. But
Mm.
for me, I mean, the majority of it, I was off of it after about 2 or 3 months. But it was one of the hardest things I had done up to that point, just because it was rough. But if I hadn't had the transitionary methodology that with Eric, and really was cleansing myself, not just changing my diet for the animals, because that came later. Like after I'd already started getting off the meat, that's when I started watching some slaughterhouse videos, and that sort of pushed me over the hump, where I was like, oh, okay, wait a minute, like because I'd cleansed myself enough to where at that point I was sort of seeing things with some different eyes, but it it can take a while, and so it's all about the process. Now, like we say, it's best to just be off of meat immediately. Just get off of it, get off of meat, dairy. But even when you read the Mucusless Diet real close, there's a reason why there's actually certain dairy products that could be used that are better than others that can be used at the very early stages of the transition. So it's always about the transitionary methodology and the goal of mucuslessness, and that's again different from every other sort of, I guess would call it a paradigm, or a system of thought, because a lot of people more recently have been coming to the Mucusless diet from like the raw foodist paradigm, and then they want to kick that up a notch, and so they look at the mucusless diet thing, but then they see how hard it actually is to take that step from being kind of a raw with still eating mucus to raw and mucusless. A lot of those people have to take that step back to cooked mucusless and raw mucusless, to actually make that thing transition properly. But
Yeah.
and so is anybody else experienced that kind of?
Yes. Yes. Exactly the same thing. I with my friend, we were like on the raw food diet maybe about 2 or 3 months, and we were eating a lot of oils, a lot of seeds, uh, and a lot of avocados, everything like this, heavy things, and they trigger they trigger other tastes. Like you have then taste for something cooked, for some, I don't know, chips or something like that.
Right.
So yeah, so I had to go back to the cooked food, and I'm proud of that now.
Yeah.
It was a great step.
Yeah, and it's such a key that uh, unless you study the Mucusless diet, you probably will never pick up on that. The folks that are totally raw foodist, that the stepping stone is cooked mucusless food. Cooked mucus-free food is sort of that stepping stone to where you get. Because for me personally, when I'm raw, I like to be mucusless and raw. I don't like to be raw and eating a lot of the avocados and sort of the nuts and that kind of thing. Now I occasionally eat those things, but I do it sort of within the context of my lower levels. When I'm at the lower levels of a lot of vegetables and that kind of thing. But my raw, I like my raw to be raw fruits and raw vegetables when I'm in that mode. And let's see. Now, does any of you guys have any questions for each other? I'll throw that out there. And okay, let's see. Is Tony's on? I tried to unmute him. What is going on? Tony, try to unmute see if you can unmute your video.
And it's me.
Oh, okay, here we go.
Okay, I'm sorry. Were you trying to jump in earlier? Sorry about that.
Yeah, because it was some noise going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to add, because George hit on something which is pretty deep, which is the piece about obstruction and how that causes different cravings. Like with me, I was in that sweet potato phase, the baked sweet potato, and every morning I would wake up with a craving, and the craving, it's really something we could get into sometime, because like let's say I have a big cooked salad, then I'm going to crave something lower if I don't get that out. So it goes down this little ladder. So if I eat a baked sweet potato, the next day I'm going to crave at least heavy vegetables. I'm not going to wake up and be like, oh, I feel like I can just do fruit today. Uh, and what I've realized now is like instead of taking something, I'm able to take that time and eliminate it. You know what I mean? And then I eat. So I'm actually, that's what I do now is when I eat, I always think about getting out the obstruction instead of thinking about eating,
Mm.
because I've just found that like the oddest of thoughts can come up, the oddest cravings can come up just based on what level of obstruction is it. So like if I overeat fruit, then I obviously start craving like raw raw broccoli. And then if I eat a large salad with the broccoli, then I'm started craving like, oh, I should put olive oil on it. And then once I put the olive oil on, I'm like, oh, a baked sweet potato would be good.
Right.
And now I've been able to space it out according to a few days. So like one day I might go as low as the olive oil and salad, and then the next day I go back up, even though I don't want to. I know I'm craving that baked sweet potato, but I go up to the raw salad and push the enemas, and then once that's out a little bit, I stop craving the baked sweet potato. And that is just a wild thing to me. And when I talk to people about the diet, that's something that I emphasize. I always talk about like what you crave is not something you need. It's just you're trying to slow down, or you already are obstructed, and you just it's just weird, how you crave stuff. And I always try to explain that to people like, oh, it's once you get some stuff out, you feel like vegetables, you feel like fruit, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So
There's
yeah.
definitely, yeah. That the slippery slope is real interesting, and the trigger, and how every time you eat a certain thing, it can sort of trigger you. It can either trigger you upward or downward, and that's an interesting kind of process. So everybody, tell me what is your biggest challenge right now? Would you say physiologically, like what kind of where are you at right now? We'll start with Sam.
Oh. I think right now it physiologically and mentally is allowing myself to get deep, really deep. You always said, "Don't be afraid if it gets too deep."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't be afraid if it gets too real. Yeah, don't be afraid if it gets too
Oh,
deep.
too real, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And
Which is a brother air quote at the.
okay,
But
yes,
yeah,
so
yeah,
that
yeah.
is. Um, but I feel like if I'm not taking it deeper physiologically, then like other things that I desire in my life to become deeper with don't happen.
Yeah.
It's a lot more difficult. There's a major block. Like, I'm also a musician, and I'm a classically trained musician, but I'm also, as well, transitioning into creating my own music. And I find that the more that I can sense my body and act upon it and consume the right things or don't consume anything, the more, I like to think of it as the wind. The more the wind comes to me, the more the sounds come to me, the more it just happens. And the same thing, I also practice yoga. I don't go to any studios, but very odd, since I've moved to Vietnam, it's kind of just happened. Like my body just knows how to do certain things and knows what it needs, and I just begin doing it. Sometimes it's an hour to 2 hours of me just doing yoga, and it's not like intense hard, I'm sweating yoga, but I feel my body really waking up. And if I'm eating mucusless, then I can feel my body physically getting deeper with the strength. I can feel like my brain and my awareness becoming more deeper. So yeah, and I notice when I eat things with rice, which, I mean, it happens living in Asia, but when I get back on the rice thing, I just feel like I'm stagnant. I'm stuck. I don't want to move my body. I don't want to breathe or meditate. I don't want to make music. I just don't feel well. So I don't feel like doing anything. I just feel like slumping, like
Right,
just
right.
doing nothing. And that's
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah, because that's, I mean, and that's where food is the real dope, and you don't realize that food is dope until you try to get off of foods that we know, we now know are very harmful to the human body. Pus and mucus
Mhm.
forming foods are not natural for humans to eat. So we start to get off of them and we see, one, how stimulating they were, that they were getting us
Mhm.
high. And you get off of them and then all of a sudden you're like, you seeing the world through some different eyes because you're not, it's like somebody that had did heroin every day since they were 5 years old. By the time they're 30, it's just part of their daily ritual of life, and that's sort of what and like Brother Air often says, getting off of mucus, it makes getting off of heroin like child's play, like Skittles. Like trying to get sand out of your shoe or something after playing in the sandbox. I mean, it's nothing compared to mucus. Mucus is so very hard to really get off, but when you do, you feel the benefit. You see the cleansing. You see the progress, and so yeah. So how about you, George? What's your challenge? Biggest physiological challenges right now?
To get us those seeds, and I mean, there are some levels. I could see them now, which I passed through. It is like on each level, it's at the beginning it's struggle, and at the end it's happiness. I mean, I could be happy on that level. That's what I want to achieve. So that's now I want to be happy on salads and fruits. It's like this, yeah, and I am. It is getting better. I feel it every day. Uh, it's not ideal, but it is much better. Those cravings are going away slowly, so I can see it.
Yeah.
Some people, they are wondering how it's possible that I don't have those cravings for the heavy foods,
Mm-hmm.
because they still have it. And for example, I have some vegetarian friends and they still have cravings for meat, but it is because they are drinking alcohol and they don't understand the connection.
Yeah.
And I think there is connection, like between some of the foods. There is connection. If you eat one of them, you will want other. So now I allow myself to like fall down to a certain level, but but my major is now to focus on the fruits and vegetables. So yeah, I'm doing it maybe like every other day. Uh, so every other day I will pick some seeds, not too much, and every other day every second day like I'm on the fruits and vegetables.
Okay.
And now I found a change in that fruits make me happy. I mean, I eat a bunch of oranges, I stand up, I go a few meters, and after that I have some kind of euphoria. And I know this is something different that I knew, because it is like only emotional. I'm not sedated. Like when I ate pizza, for example, pizza, yeah, I was like, it was heavy meal.
Right. Yeah.
I was heavy sedated. I was like, oh, like a stone to my stomach.
Right.
It's like a stone in stomach. But this is like like tender. I don't know what. Fruit is much different in this, like behaves in the body. So it is not filter. It is not like looking through the fog. it is like be happy, being happy.
Yeah.
But still at the evening I have those cravings for harder stuff sometimes. Yes, and every other day I do it on the purpose. Sometimes even when I'm not in the mood to eat it, I eat it sometimes and anyway because uh, I want to do like permanent changes and I need to have a schedule. So so when I feel my body don't want it so much that it is then I eliminate it.
Mm.
Then I transition away from that food.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah. My, for example, I ate maybe 2 months ago. I ate ketchups and mustard, but to the sweet potatoes, to the broccoli, steamed, and stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
So it was major of my food was almost mucusless or mucus lean, and those were just two ingredients that I knew it is not good. But I waited till it was not tasty at
Mm-hmm.
all.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't find it tasty. I wanted something like other kind of dressing. So I found out then about the dressing to the salad, which are made from fruit,
Mm-hmm.
oranges and dates, and yeah, and those I found great. Now I'm so happy because of those.
Yeah.
But like
And
this,
that's that, and what you just described there, that's exactly how the transition works. I mean, you start wherever you're at, and you know you getting into some using some ketchup and mustard or whatever. I started off with in the very beginning, just to get me in the salads, I was dealing with some vinegar containing salad dressings, and then then I started moving to tomato sauce that was some very fairly clean tomato sauce, and then I found there was a couple brands that of vinegar free dressing, and so but that's the thing, it's like you sort of identify where you're at, you take that step to the next level, and don't beat yourself up when you're down or you have a relapse and you go and you eat a bunch of mess. You just keep on moving forward. So we'll go to Tony here, and then after this we can close out. So Tony, what's your goals? What you trying to do right now?
Uh, well, I would have to say discipline, just as far as one word. And um, like today, I went out to the fruit market and I got some fruits, and I realized that like at the higher levels takes more discipline than at the lower levels. In a strange way, because it's almost like the lower level discipline, getting off the meat, getting off the dairy, getting off the grain, prepares you for higher level discipline. So, for example, I wasn't really feeling like I needed anything, but the minute I got to the, I mean, I didn't need like anything at the moment, you know? And when I got to the fruit market, I was just like, I want to eat all this, you know? I mean, I was like, you know what I mean? I was looking at the mangoes, I was looking at the cantaloupes, and I just realized like, if I'm doing a mono diet on, let's say, cantaloupes, I'm gonna be looking at those mangoes or the watermelon or like, the mangoes really were standing out, or the grapes, and it's just like that's discipline right there, to deal with that,
Right.
because it's easy to want to just eat all this ripe fruit uh, when like, or at least I can feel it. Like if I overeat fruit, then I want the salad. Like I said, it goes downhill, and I'm trying to move up right now. So yeah, I would say discipline, and the other thing is kind of not looking forward at the future. I'm always feeling like um, there's kind of like a feeling of like, what if I don't have what I want when I need it?
oh yeah,
And and that will get me thinking about food. And that's like another part of the discipline, is just like, how do you say, like, you might have a little bit of grapes, and money might be tight, and you don't really need to eat, but you might feel like, oh, I'm just gonna eat, let's say, all the grapes up, and then the next day it's like, oh, I could just kind of, let's say, put some lemon in water, and just kind of take it easy. But instead, it's like, oh, I got to go to the grocery store and get a whole bunch of stuff, and then at the grocery store, you start craving new stuff. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'm kind of
yeah,
getting off track, but I would say it's the discipline piece, and yeah,
yeah. Well, you brought up some good points on sort of the variations of the transition and how the higher you get, different things are challenging. As you said, if you're trying to do a mono fruit fast or a mono fruit eating period, sometimes you could really start craving other types of fruit. You might not be craving vegetables at all. You're just like, man, I want some other types of fruit. Or for me, the thing is, I can usually find the thing that I need, but my problem has been being able to consistently get at a reasonable price what I want, because the grapes have been stupid, have been insane. There have been like $3 a pound for some moldy grapes that don't even that they shouldn't even have out there on the floor to be sold. And
Right.
it's so not being able to get the food that you you might want. For me, that's probably my primary challenge right now when I think about it, just as because I really am like a scavenger, and being into this diet, you sort of get in that mode sometimes, depending on where you live and sort of your diet. Just that situation where I live, I'm like a scavenger, where I have to go from store to store to store. I go to one. I might get one thing at one store. I go to Kroger and they got one thing that's edible to me that I like, and I go there,
yeah,
and then I go to Whole Foods. There might be one thing I need from Whole Foods. I go to Meijer. There might be one thing they have on sale, and I
yeah,
actually did that
exactly.
today. I went to several stores trying to round up the different foods that I want, and because there's no store that's close to having everything that I could use that I really need at a reasonable price. One store, they might have those items, but the price will be outrageous and at on whatever I want. And that's a pretty intense challenge. And
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I drove. Sorry, Samantha. I
No, you can continue.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah, I drove like a half hour today to get a box of lemons because I was like, I need some serious lemons, and I had a plan. You know what I mean? And I got out there, man. They didn't have no lemons,
I hate
and
that.
Um,
Yeah,
I was like, oh man. And
yeah, yeah.
I just wanted to give one more example about what I was saying with my challenges. Like right now, I'm coming up on this dry fast, and I feel good. You know what I mean? But when I get home, I might have some juice before I lay down. And but I got a ripe cantaloupe at the house too, and I know the minute I get home, I'm gonna be like,
mm,
I want that cantaloupe, but I really know transitionally, I need to just have a little bit of juice today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of that discipline of just not jumping around.
And that's where that technique gets in, because what I used to do in those type of situations was, like, as soon as I get home, I'm gonna do my enema. Like, all right,
Right,
like as
right.
soon as I walk in the door, like, cause I know I'm gonna start craving stuff, and it's like I do my enema, boom, and then after that I'm cool, wait a while, maybe I had some juice or something, but you start to stack things, and then other times it might have been, okay, I'm gonna get home, and then immediately I'm gonna make a salad and eat the salad before I eat something else worse, before I start eating a bunch of nuts, or
Yeah,
before I eat some other kind of mucus item I got sitting around, so there you get into, because the discipline and the willpower on the one hand, and then that strategy, the strategic aspects of the transition, and the story about the lemons. I mean, that's where we're really starting to talk about what this thing is really about, how real this thing is, because and those are stories I don't always hear the people that are promoting like the other diets and stuff, and I don't hear them talking about that, and that's real, because this thing
hmm
is not easy, but it's hard not for the reason that people think. People think it's hard because, well, if they haven't transitioned, they think it's hard. Like, man, aren't you hungry, or don't you want this, or don't you miss that? It's like, I don't miss any of that. I don't miss eating the pus. I don't miss eating in restaurants. I don't eat in restaurants anymore. I haven't for the past 10 years. I don't miss that social piece, personally. But the challenge is, like you said, you might drive a half an hour for one thing, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna get this one thing, and you got the best intentions. It's totally rational, and you get there and they don't have it, and that's a regular occurrence. That's like this lifestyle. That's happened to me so many times. And when I try to call, there was times I tried to be proactive.
Yeah, I should have called.
Yeah. But there was times where I think a couple years ago I was trying to call places that you really shouldn't try to call, like Meyer and stuff, Kroger, just to try to get to the produce department to see, do you still have grapes on sale? Because if you can tell me yes or no, that'll save me a trip. And you end up being on hold for about a half an hour. And then the call drops, and you call back. You're like, I'm trying to get to the produce, and they're like, oh, okay, hold please. Like, I just held for a half hour. So this thing can get real interesting. And
Yeah, but there is the other side as well, no? I mean, for example, yesterday I was in store and I was trying to buy some bananas, and they were in discount. Ripe bananas in discount because nobody wants them.
Exactly. Well, that's a
Yeah.
good point. Yeah. There's also the other side of it where, the really ripe fruits and that kind of, you can get a real cheap price on what you want and what you need sometimes. Yeah, definitely. And so I know some of you, I think, gotta go. I know it's been an hour, and I think, George, you said you had to get out of here, right?
Yeah. There is 3 o'clock a.m. here.
Okay. Yeah. And
Yeah.
3. Yeah.
Hey, man, thanks for coming out, man, for that.
Yeah.
Coming on,
Yeah, most definitely. Well,
That's positive.
well, I'll open it up real quick. If any of you have any questions that you'd like to ask me, we could do that, or any more questions for each other, or something. We kind of just open it up a little bit.
I have one.
Okay.
These sessions will be on more frequent base because you are first 3 people I ever talked about this in my life, as from the perspective of someone who has the same goals. Because I thought about this with some people, but they don't agree, and you do, so it's much different. And you got experience, so
This is something that I'd like to keep it going, kind of see. I'm not sure how I want to do it yet. If I want to do it once a week or sort of every once in a while, or I'm gonna kind of put this out there, see how it does, see how people respond to it. And there was a lot of people that wanted to be here today that had other obligations, and we have some other things that we want to do. I'm gonna do some kind of one-on-one videos with certain people, and just kind of, I think that this is the time of really talking about this diet and dialoguing, because I'm a stickler for studying and reading, and sometimes I can really kind of focus on that a lot with people, just read, just really study the information and get that. But I'm noticing now there's enough people that have done that. There's enough people that have studied the information, that have been serious about practicing it. So now I'm kind of ready to, okay, let's really start to plug into one another and share our experiences, share this information, and take this thing to the next level together. So I would say yes, I'd like to keep doing these, and we'll kind of communicate on the forum and find the best time for everybody, and keep doing more of these. And anybody else, any other questions while we're here?
I don't have a question, but I want to share some information about where I live.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because one thing I admire about where I live is that things grow all year round. But something that can be really frustrating with that is the availability of fruit all year round. Like, there was a period where I swear there was nothing but grapefruits. Like, nothing. Like, I guess you could go to the supermarket and get apples that come from New Zealand, or oh, sometimes they have grapes that come from America, but they're like 12 or $13 a kilo, so that's like $6 a pound. Ooh.
Wow.
Or
Yeah.
like, one day I'll be really craving some mangoes or papaya. I'm like, I need papaya. I just finished my fast. Papaya is what I need. And it's not
Right.
papaya season. I have to wait till April, May, and it's January. Like, no papayas. And even like, I know a lot of raw food is use bananas as a staple, and bananas are, mucus lean. Are they mucus lean? Would you
Well,
consider mucus
really ripe
lean?
bananas are mucusless if they're really ripe, and
Yeah.
they're not the great detoxifiers. They're not a great
Mhm.
detoxifying food, but it's as far as just a fruit that is a good fruit to eat when you're not fasting or something. Yeah, bananas, or very ripe banana
Yeah.
is cool.
So we had no bananas for a couple months. No bananas, no papayas. So I was like, I'm hungry. I don't want to eat rice. I want some bananas. No bananas. And grapes are really expensive, and there's just grapefruit. And so it's wonderful being in a place where I have to live and eat seasonally. And then it can be quite frustrating too. And
Right.
literally, like, I'm like, what can I eat? What can I eat? Unripe mangoes? No.
Now you said,
A lot of people eat unripe mangoes here too.
oh, unripe. Yeah, that's
Green mangoes, dress it with salt, chili, and sugar. And I'm
Ah,
like,
Yeah.
ah.
ah!
Okay, well, yeah, that's an acquired taste a little bit, and now you said you had uh, a pineapple you were going to show us.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
hold on. Hold on.
And
is it possible to slow down your elimination with bananas with some dried fruit or something?
Yeah. I
So
think
actually, this
so.
papaya is, I mean, papaya. Pineapple is a little old. It's beginning to mold, but look, it's so yellow.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
So yellow.
wow,
Eat
tree,
that.
yeah,
Eat that.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm
like
gonna
eat
get
that
this this
today.
morning.
Yeah, right, yeah,
Yeah, it
that's
just smells like.
because that's pretty much,
Mm.
yeah. I mean, that's tree ripened. I would imagine that's about
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
as good as it gets
Oh
right
man.
there, and because
Yeah, and that was like 50 cents. 50 cents.
wow.
What?
Sometimes 35 cents. You can get two for about 70 cents.
See, I
I'll
would be
buy them all
living
up.
on
It's
pineapple.
like
I would be in.
Yeah.
And the pineapple is good. Like, I know in the States we get our pineapples from Central America, and
Yeah.
sometimes eating too much pineapple can sometimes burn my mouth,
Well,
but this pineapple
Yeah.
yeah,
does not.
that's because
But
the key
yeah.
is really tree ripened pineapple, and in general tree
Mm,
ripened citrus fruit, which we never see in the States. I mean, you're just
mm,
never going to see a tree ripened pineapple, which almost makes because and when they're not tree ripened, they do not ripen. Sort of, or when they ripen, they're way too acidic.
mm.
Yeah.
And so that becomes a problem. I actually just because I wanted one, I went ahead and bought a pineapple and had one the other day because it was real cheap on sale, and then I tried to let it ripen, and I was like, man, this thing is taking forever to ripen, and then it got sort of ripe, and I ate a little bit of it, and I was like, it was just like eating
Mm.
some
Yeah.
battery
Yeah.
battery acid with a little bit of pineapple flavoring to it,
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I do something kind of strange. I've gotten into the habit of putting my fruits in warm water before I eat them. And the reason why I do that is because it seems like it makes them less acidic. And I kind of like my fruit at a warm temperature, not like hot, but
Okay,
It
I
does
like that.
something, and it I almost think about it as like putting it back in its tropical environment for a few
Hmm.
minutes, or sometimes I'll let it soak in there, and I've definitely noticed that it's less acidic
Hmm.
and it tastes more ripe. Like when I've had tree ripened oranges, it tastes more like that and less acidic.
Hmm.
It's kind of a strange thing, and I've just gotten into that. And sometimes I'll even cook like I'll slow cook like a pineapple and just if it's unripe and just kind of cook it up a little bit and it's less acidic.
Right, and that's something that I mean, Eric sort of talks about. I mean, one of Eric's things that he talks about, like the baked banana in there, or maybe I talk about the baked banana, but he talks about just stewed fruit in general, and the apples or whatever. But baked banana is one of the recipes that I had come across in the mucusless community in Cincinnati, and I got into that. That actually was a great recipe that
Yeah.
helped me get off of anything that I had a sweet tooth for. If I, if I crave pie or cookies or something like
Mm.
that, if I made some baked banana, the ingredients are baked banana, uh, dates, and applesauce, and
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, that
and
sounds
if you
good.
and if you want it, you can, and it's acceptable to put brown sugar on it if you need that, but you really don't need that because it's already super sweet
Mm-mm.
with the dates, and that became a household favorite of mine, and that's another thing, the a stage that a lot of people don't visit is the stewed fruit stage to actually get
Mm.
into what that does physiologically, that as a stepping stone, can be pretty interesting. And so yeah, well, this was a really great discussion, I think, and
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, we will definitely keep doing this, and I know everybody, all you guys are real dedicated, and I first, appreciate you coming on here and talking and sharing details about yourself, and you were going to put this stuff out there, and thank Tony for he's doing a lot to really promote the diet, and working to, he's making some great videos. If you haven't checked out his channel, check him out, subscribe to his channel, and we're trying to expand and kind of elevate this consciousness, elevate the consciousness of those around us. We don't try to push this, forcefully in people's face and that kind of thing. That's not what we're about. That's not what the diet thing is. However, we do assert ourselves and we let you know, like, we're here, and that this is this is a force to be reckoned with. This, and it's a direction that we know humanity needs, and we know that humanity needs to come in this direction. That other thing is old, it's tired, it's done. The protein theory, we can kick that on out of here. These vitamin things and nutritional concepts and all this stuff, which a lot of people cling to. A lot of the people, even in the plant-based side of things, really cling to these theories. And what Eric does is just, it simplifies everything. It says, like, look, the calorie theory, that actually makes absolutely no sense on any level. So let's scrap it. Let's actually just scrap all of this stuff and start over again with, vitality equals power minus obstruction. Let's look at that and see where that goes. See kind of where that takes us. And so really appreciate any closing thoughts, Samantha.
I'm just really grateful to be a part of this and be able to speak with other individuals to practice and are seeking wellness and health and vitality and happiness. And it's really great because the vibrations are, I'm really affected by what's around me, so it's just really nice to be around people who are working hard to go deep and be really bright and help heal the world, because it's a quite upset and sick place.
Most
Yeah.
We're
definitely.
doing what we can. We're doing
Doing
it.
it, yeah, and it's
Doing it.
change from within, and that
Yeah.
changes everything. And George,
Mhm.
how about you? Any closing
Yeah,
thoughts?
I'm most thankful, most grateful. Thank you so much. You don't even know. The book I printed on the PDF from the internet. It is not available here in Slovak language, not at all. So no one knows it. No one.
Right. Yeah.
I've spoken with maybe hundreds of people with this. I do in bookstore. I work in bookstore, but they haven't heard about Eret. No one of them, and the book no one read. So, so it is like a gift. Thank you, God, for that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Tony.
Yeah, shoot, I'm feeling good, and I'm really happy to have seen all you guys, Samantha and George, Spira. It's just nice to see you all, and yeah, I really hope we can get this more regular because it gives me something to look forward to in a kind of mucusless way. Like, uh, it helps me stay on the thing because I'm like, okay, I have some people I can talk to about this, uh, and I just really enjoy being able to talk to folks about it in a mucusless physiology myself, and so it keeps me on it. And yeah, it's just I always try to say, mucuslessness is possible and it's real. So let's all kind of keep that in mind that like whatever we might consume in the long run, we can all become mucusless. And so, feeling good. All right.
Yeah, most def. So I think that says it all, man. Really appreciate y'all, you guys, and uh, until next time, peace, love, and breath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peace.
Bye.